This is the G podcast where we focus on family, friends, finances, freedom, and our future, and everything else. This is the G podcast. Tonight we are live, and we got the one and only, the one, my only, Kharmika Alston in the building. Let's get right to it.
Blink yet?
Y'all know what it is. This is the G podcast where we focus on family, friends, finances, freedom, and our future, and everything else. Tonight we got a very special guest. Kharmika, thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Oh boy, this is going to be a great one. Let me just leave a little comment here. If you're watching live, please leave a comment, drop a comment, let us know you're there. Sweetie, I'm sorry. So for this interview, is it okay to do I just need to simply refer to you as Kharmika? I'm sorry. Can we establish some boundaries as to how I should refer to you?
I think Kharmika is good because people might tune in later and wonder why you're calling me something else other than my name.
It's so difficult to call you anything other than beautiful, if I'm being honest, but I'll try my best here to keep it professional as I continue to interview you. So once again, just thank you for joining us on today. I'm sure you're such a busy person. I actually want to get right to around the time we met, and then we'll get to your current real estate journey. But it's been a long journey, in my opinion. And I really like to start from around the time we met, because when we met, you were finishing up grad school and you were about to start a career in the Foreign Service. Just can you talk to the people a little bit about that fellowship you had that even introduced you to the Foreign Service, the name of it, and how you got introduced to it?
For people that may not know, the Foreign Service is the diplomatic corps. So it's part of the executive branch State Department. So the State Department sends people abroad to represent U.S. interests in different foreign countries. So that's what the Foreign Service is. I majored in international relations. After graduating and not really having certain plans pan out, I applied to this fellowship that was meant to increase diversity in the Foreign Service. So increasing diversity among the diplomatic corps and the people that we send out abroad to represent the U.S. And they pay for your graduate school at a 2-year program relevant to the Foreign Service. So I have a master's in public policy, and you get to intern abroad. You intern on Capitol Hill. After that, you're required to, back then, I had to serve at least 3 years in government service, but now it's 5. And yeah, I had a whole 5-year plan at that time. So 2 years in graduate school with my summers planned, and then at least 3 years in the Foreign Service.
Okay, thank you. That time in the Foreign Service, a lot of lessons learned, and also was the time period where ultimately you sort of had the light bulbs to get into real estate and entrepreneurship. So I'm curious, if you could, what were some of the moments where you really realized that that career and lifestyle wasn't going to be suitable for you long term, being in the Foreign Service?
Well, sometimes I tell this story and I say 6 months in, I knew it wasn't going to work for me, but I think it was much sooner than that. And I have this poor personality trait where if something isn't working out the way I expect it to, I just double down and try harder. I knew that the workplace environment and just how everything structurally was set up wasn't going to work for me in the long term, but I did try harder. That's how I got that second assignment. And I did a lot of brainstorming to see what is it that I could do differently? What am I doing wrong? But in the meantime, I bought a book called How to Start Your Own Business, because I was in such an extreme kind of mindset that I was like, if this isn't working, something that I planned my whole life for, an international career, or at least majoring in something that's related, studying 3 languages, interning abroad, volunteering abroad. So when you're 24, college and graduate school is your whole life effectively. So I was like, if this isn't working, I must not be able to work for other people. So I bought that book, and there were some helpful charts in there. I was like, what do you like doing? What do your friends think you're good at? What do you think you're good at? I just was like, at that time, it didn't really click for me. Real estate didn't click for me as the answer, but there were some great critical questions in there. And I also explored a lot of other career options. I was reading about consulting and tech policy and getting jobs in that. So I knew right away, but I just didn't know what.
But no, but what about, like, what made you realize that? Like, what was the moment, like what took place in the workplace that made you realize that this wasn't going to be the workplace for you?
Yeah. So I think just the lack of mentorship and even the lack of good managers and supervisors and coworkers was the first alarm bell, because you have to take tests to get into the Foreign Service. We were told, people in the fellowship, that we had to go to a certain type of school and we had to do certain things. And then you got into this workplace and folks were not exceptional. Like, you were the only exceptional one, turns out. And maybe they cheated the test or whatever. And it's a written test, it's a essay, and then it's a test in 3 sections in front of people, like a case management where you're debating with your colleagues about a particular issue, and then you have to build consensus. There's a case study where you write about an issue and you also present a solution. And then there's a one-on-one interview. So how all these people got past this, I wasn't sure, but they just weren't for me. They weren't my tribe. And that was the first alarm bell, because truthfully, the lifestyle is amazing. Living in different countries, getting to have different food, different travel experiences, taking long weekends in other countries, better flight prices because you're more centrally located to countries you want to see. So it was hard being away from family and friends, but the worst part was like who I was surrounded with. And in both instances abroad, I was in a small post. So maybe things could have been different for me if I was in one of our larger embassies or consulates, but I wasn't. And I think that the path was laid for what I'm doing right now.
We do got the cousin Don listening. Shout out to Don, man. So just to be clear, did somebody say something to you, or did you just up and leave and were like, man, I'm just done with this gig?
Well, I'm wondering if cousin Don is saying, did someone in the job tell me this wasn't for me? Or if he means if someone aspirational outside of the job inspired me. But no, the reality is I was so good at what I was doing other people's work. So nobody was necessarily saying, you're not good at this or this isn't for you. They just wanted me to conform my attitude to and my mindset and my spirit to how they want people in an organization to be. But my work and everything was just fine. I'd say in a lot of cases, especially in my first assignment, the work was really compelling. There's actually been a lack of there's been a lack of mentorship and guidance, and I would say in a lot of stuff that I do, where I just decide I'm going to do it because of what I found out and my own detachment from reality, and I create my own reality. I just went for it.
And so being in that type of career, like you said, a lot of advantages, and ultimately you realized that wasn't going to work for you, and you tried some other things. I'm curious, like, what were maybe one or two of the biggest just takeaways that have stuck with you since your experience in the Foreign Service?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is that not everything is for everybody. I have good friends that the Foreign Service is perfect for them. Their mindset and their disposition is perfect for the Foreign Service, and they're not bad people. Now, there are other people that's just not going to work for them. They have to be doing something else. So that's one thing, is not everything is for everybody, and that's okay. Another is that institutions change people. So if you're a person and you think, oh, I'm going to join this institution because I want to change it from the inside out, or I want to make impactful changes. People don't change institutions. The institutions change the people. No matter where you're going, you have to be prepared. Yeah, you might have your own ideas. You might have leadership that's supporting you. But ultimately, your goals are going to be diluted in some form or fashion, because that is the point of an institution, and going to work every day and having multiple levels of supervision, sometimes having no supervision. You're not necessarily meant to create wide sweeping, impactful change at institutions. They're more so there to promote the status quo, and in whatever industry it is, with maybe some incremental improvements here or there.
Okay. All right. So you had that time in the Foreign Service before you eventually signed up for that real estate class. What were some of the other, like you mentioned some, but like you tried, like ultimately why real estate over those other situations? Like why ultimately did you go all in on real estate?
So real estate was checking a lot of boxes. So at the time, we were living in Amsterdam. That was also simultaneously like this rise in anti-globalism. The former president was coming into power. He was galvanizing a lot of support for his ideas. We were also simultaneously wondering, like, where are we going to invest? Where are we going to invest in the community? Which I do believe back then, investing in real estate is investing in a community, and it's investing in yourself and your family and your friends and your community. So we were also contemplating that. And every time that I looked online about houses and different areas to settle in, Durham and North Carolina in general was topping these accolade lists. So it just all kind of came together. Like, I'm looking for real estate to buy. I'm looking for somewhere to go after this career. I'm looking to start my own business and have more autonomy over how I comport myself and my ideas. I'm looking to make more money than I was making as well. So it checked a lot of boxes.
We did leave Amsterdam and come back to Durham. And what I know about you is you are a doer, and that you are definitely driven to get things done. Before we even left Amsterdam, you also had already signed up for the real estate class, so you could I think we touched down on a Friday, and by that Monday you started class, if I remember correct. So we didn't even have like time
Correct.
off upon transitioning, right?
Yeah.
In taking that class, you were able to successfully get through that on your first go around, but you weren't doing it full time. Can you revisit that time period and just talk about, like, for anyone listening who might be thinking about that exam or going through it right now, like what were some of the key things that helped you get through that successfully your first go around?
Well, I just want to say, too, I've always had an incredible sense of urgency. I feel like I had to make up for lost time. I wish that someone had told me to get a 4-year degree in business or economics and go straight into real estate. And then maybe if I wanted to get an MBA or something, I could have that option. So I felt like I really needed to make up for lost time in terms of being an entrepreneur, getting ideas out there, disrupting the industry. I did try to get a full-time job. You encouraged me to get a full-time job and not just go into real estate full-time, but to like dip my toe in by having some steady income. But I didn't get a full-time job until months later, and it was simultaneous with me getting my license. So I had full days to do everything the real estate instructor said. So she would tell us to read a chapter, and then she'd go over the chapter when we got to class. I read the whole real estate book because I did what she told me to do. And that was we covered every chapter in the real estate book, and I would make flashcards and I would take practice tests and things like that because I had all day. So I recommend to folks who want to take the real estate exam or get into real estate, make sure that you carve out hours to really understand the material, because the subject matter has a lot of Latin, has a lot of legal terms, has a lot of definitions, and ultimately it's not teaching you how to do real estate. It's teaching you how to, like, what the laws are and how to pass the test so that you can practice real estate. So it's very important for anyone that's interested to give yourself the chance to actually be able to pass the tests by studying and carving out time.
Okay, that time period was definitely that time period was definitely a transition for the two of us as we left that foreign service lifestyle and got back to like regular everyday. And we moved back to Durham, and you were studying for that test. Now, in the midst of you studying for the test and transitioning, we also were in the market for our first home at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's just talk about that first home buying experience, because I think we both learned quite a bit from that whole deal. And I want to kind of lead by first saying that when you did make that choice to say, okay, done with the foreign service, like most times, I definitely was challenging that thought to say, are you sure this is what you want to do, right? Because the lifestyle we had, etc. And I was like, are you sure you want to give this up, right? Once that was thoroughly challenged and you were like, F it, we are gone. This is not what I want to do. We figured out ultimately Durham was the best landing spot. When we moved back, I had the opportunity to at least have a job, but we both were starting from scratch. We lived with my mother for, what was that?
It's like
3 months?
No,
2 months
like,
or so? Yeah. We moved back and we didn't have a home. We didn't have a car. So the first thing we did was we bought a car, a Chevy Cruze, and then we bought a house. I want to emphasize just how important that ended up being in retrospect, because it gave us an opportunity to not just hit a reset button, but like really get beneath like our means in a way that otherwise I don't know if we would have, I just don't know how things would have been without resetting the way that we did. So part of why we had that opportunity was because of where we ended up buying the home. When we first were in the market looking for a home, like what were some of your first initial, like, do you remember like before we bought the home, like what you were ideally thinking like this would go, like how, like what you thought we might move into versus where we ended up?
Well, I think that everybody, and I've seen it working in real estate, aspires to a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, single family, detached. So I think that's initially what we wanted, but then kind of just only one of us working, I think we kind of realized, well, let's try to find the most affordable property possible. Because we really critically thought about it. Like, do we need a single family home? Do we need 3 bedrooms? Do we need that? When you see the prices, like, and I honestly can't remember what made us say we don't need that, because to this day in my line of work, most people insist vehemently that they need that. So I don't know how we truly, I can't really remember how we were like, that's not that important, other than somehow we said, let's buy something under 100K. And I don't know if that was the determining factor, because there were only 3 properties on the market in 2017 that were under 100K. We saw all of them. They were all spectacularly underwhelming and disappointing. And I feel like that's where our dynamic really showed, because I think you're like, look, we don't have to live here forever. And I think that's also kind of what simultaneously finding a home and practicing real estate, could truly be instilled in me, because I was learning that it's not hard to buy another house. It's not hard to become an investor if that's what you want to do. So it all kind of compounded on itself to just be like, make a decision. Because even then, you didn't necessarily have a long time to make decisions on properties. And ironically, our property that we ended up buying had been under contract 2 other times at higher prices. And just the reason why it kept coming back to the market was some structural issue that really wasn't that big of a deal. So apparently nobody bothered to get a structural engineer to just assess the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And our inspector also told us this isn't like the worst issue. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I am rambling, but I just think that people shouldn't feel like what they want ultimately has to be the first step. They can build up to those steps. I think that I truly believe that I could also do that.
So we moved into that house. You continued. Well, let me see. Yeah, you didn't have your license quite yet. Let's talk about like those early stages when you first got your real estate license. And so around that time when you got your license, you also started working full time. For people who are new to real estate, like what were just some of those early mistakes that you really in knowing what you know now you could have avoided potentially?
Yeah, if someone would have told me the key to real estate is selling and knowing how to sell, I think I would have invested my time, energy, and money differently. People in real estate, they say sometimes I was meeting people that say, I love to see houses, or I got into real estate because I don't know, some other stupid reason. I love to see houses. I see a lot. The reality is, if you do not already have a built-in network of mid to high net worth individuals who already own property, you need to sell yourself and sell the property. So instead of investing in like lead sources, I probably would have invested in like sales coaching and objection handlers and just more practice with that. Practicing with a person. I did have a coach, a business coach, and I've pretty much always had a business coach. And there is a book for any beginning real estate agent called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And it has all of these sales tactics in there and strategies and a model for success that is truly time tested. Like if you follow everything in the book, that's what's going to take you. You will get to $1 million. So I think that the mistake was that I can just be me with the skills I already have. Like, oh, well, I speak Spanish, so I can appeal to Spanish speakers in the market, which is 1,000% true, but I still have to sell myself to them. Or I say, well, I've worked with people from a bunch of different cultures, so I'm going to be good at real estate. No, no, or whatever I thought so highly of myself. The number one skill is knowing how to sell. And people might say, well, what does that entail? Well, it entails being good at listening and then being good at asking good questions. Hi, Ebony Blake.
Selling. Interesting. All right. So you would have invested more in learning how to sell. Interesting. Before I move forward, all right. So let's still stay around that time period of first having your license, doing real estate while also working full time. What is that like trying to work full time and then get started with real estate?
Well, this is why I say not everything is for everybody, because if you want to be comfortable, then you keep your job. But if you want to break barriers and utterly transform your life and the lives of your family, then you're going to take a risk. So my day job, it was very comfortable. I liked a lot of things about it, but it did take up like 9 to 5, sometimes the evening. And you truly need all of that time to build a business. You need time 9 to 5, and then you need 5 to 9. I would work full time and do things in the evening to get my name out there. I'd go to networking events. I built up my blog, livelovedurham.com, where I was taking in real time lessons that I was learning and putting them into a few paragraphs, thinking that if I can distill these lessons into easy to read, quick reads, anybody can read this and go and do it. And it will also at the same time help me distinguish myself from the thousands upon thousands of real estate agents in the Triangle. Like at the time, I just felt like everybody I knew already knew a real estate agent, already had a real estate agent. So how was I ever going to get sales? So the blog and then subsequently Live Love Durham on Instagram and Facebook helped me build a brand around the values that I thought were most important in real estate and did help me distinguish myself. So just as a timeline, I got my license November 2017. I only sold one house in 2018. So a lot of that 2018, I was networking, I was going to events, I was getting to know people in the community. I worked on different local campaigns for people. And I built up my blog and I built up my Instagram, and I used Instagram to see what people were interested in. I also used Instagram to show what I was interested in too, and show what I was doing every day in the real estate world, like looking at various houses, going to open houses, touring the houses. I would put little tours on there. And then as I got to grow more and more experienced, I would do Instagram lives and answer questions, and kind of took a lot of the energy that I put into my blog to actually keep interacting and engaging with people on Instagram and Facebook.
So that was 2018, your first full year with the license, and you were still working full time. And all that time and energy yielded one transaction. In 2019, you got to a point to where you were like, I don't know if doing this on my own is going to really be the best path forward, given where you were and just what was taking place at the time. And so I remember we went through 2018, dealt with those challenges, and was figuring out, okay, what am I going to do different? And the question really started to question, like, how am I going to keep working full time and pursue what I'm trying to do with real estate? I just can't do both.
Yeah.
Eventually, you did take that step. Like, why is it, do you think, that as a real estate or a realtor, like, why is it so difficult to build something substantial while working even part-time versus being all in as an entrepreneur?
Well, part of it is psychological. When you're an entrepreneur or doing something new, you have to fully lean into hard things. So just things outside of your comfort zone, because that's the only way you're going to grow. But if you have a full-time job, maybe you fall back on that and say, well, I don't have to host an open house on Saturday and Sunday, or I don't have to door knock this neighborhood, or I don't have to do this or that. I don't have to take advantage of every single opportunity to maybe learn from a senior agent or learn about the market, because first of all, I'm tired. Like a full-time job is even a part-time job. It's hard, like living, breathing, and working in America, period. So then you go and do something else after that. The incentive is not there. So that's one thing. But then what really kind of kickstarted it is I went to an award ceremony for my firm at the time and saw who was getting awards. And truly, that's when I knew, like, real estate is for everybody. Everybody that wants it can have it. Now, I'm not trying to knock anybody, but also none of these people were exceptional. They were not Oprah or people that you think are so charismatic, talented, like Simone Biles, or just people that possess so much talent and charisma and discipline and intellectualism. That's not it. It's not. These are people that go out and consistently do the same thing every day. They have the same conversation. They support their community. They likely volunteer. They likely been going to the same church since they were 3, or they talk to their beautician and everybody in the salon every time they get their hair done. It's not a hard formula. So I was like, if they can do it, I can do it, and I will do it. And in a matter of that next year, the year after that, I'm up there getting awards too, more than some people I sat and looked at when I only had one sale and only made $3,000 off the sale. It's those two things. Like, comfort is just not going to support you going to the next level. And then 2, other people, seeing that other people can do it. Real estate is the model. I can't be a gymnast. You have to start, when you're young. Some people have to have a certain type of body. I can't be a ballerina. I'm not going to be the next.
Well, you got the body. That's a fact.
Okay. I'm not going to be the next tech developer to launch some new app. So what can we do? And what can I do? And that's what it was. I wasn't a graphic designer. I'm not a singer. I'm not a dancer. There were just few things, and I really think about it. What is going to get me to where I want to be, and how am I going to do it, and what examples am I looking at? And just keeping a full-time job just wasn't going to get me there. But I do want to say I have good friends in the industry that had full-time jobs for longer, and they use their full-time job to buy more properties because it's easier to buy real estate as a W-2 employee than a self-employed employee. So they took a different path where they're like, I don't have to jump into this sales thing. I can look at opportunities around me to buy more properties, fix them up, things like that. And then that also gives me credibility as an agent. So there are multiple paths, but for me, I don't think that I was inspired in my day-to-day job. And I just kept seeing examples of like, I don't want to be there in 3 years. I want to be there right now. Always how I am. To my detriment at times is like, I'm not waiting for anything. I'm doing it now.
So let's talk a little bit about that difficulty of trying to buy a home when you are self-employed versus having a W-2, which is something we definitely learn, I guess, a little bit through the hard way, through experience. But just for people out there listening who might be self-employed, thinking about home ownership, like what are some of the qualifications that apply when you're trying to get that sort of lending when you're self-employed that don't necessarily apply when you have a W-2 type job?
I don't even know the whole game. I will say, they say, if you are self-employed, we want to see at least 2 years of tax returns. So that typically means you've been in business 3 to 4 years because you file taxes after the year. So, and then only then do they average them together. So you might have made 50K one year and 100K the next year. They're averaging that to see your buying power. Now, if you also have student loan debt or consumer debt, that's going to decrease your it's going to increase your debt to income ratio to the point where it decreases how much house you qualify for. So it becomes impossible, honestly, unless you make a lot of money as soon as you become self-employed and you're filing taxes in a way that you're not claiming as many expenses. A lot of business owners like to claim expenses and put all these things so their taxable income is less. Well, that's going to hurt you in the home buying process. So where does that leave you if you're someone that started their own business because they didn't feel like they were employable, they're over it, and then they want to buy a house, and you might have some student loan debt, you might have some other debt, you probably have some car debt, you don't have a partner that has a W-2, you're not going to really be able to do anything unless you do seller financing. So the seller takes the place of the bank and you're showing them like, hey, I can bring a down payment, I can pay you monthly at a certain interest rate. The bank I won't qualify. Or you do have a partner or somewhere, you have a family member that's giving you money or being on the loan with you. But it's very hard to get a loan as a self-employed person unless you've been self-employed and filing taxes and keeping expenses minimal for, to me, I'd say at least 5 years.
5 years. Wow. So you're saying if you are self-employed and looking to buy, you need to be looking ahead like 2 years from now if you're like thinking to have those thoughts today, realistically, in most cases, because of the fact of taxes and history and all those things.
Yeah. And yeah.
Okay. That's what
I think that's hard because if you ask me when's the best time to buy, It's now. It's when you think about it. It's when you want to do it, because there's an opportunity cost of waiting. People I met in 2017 when I was trying to sell myself and convince them to let me help them buy a house were like, no, the market's too crazy. I'm going to wait for it to slow down. So just for reference, like our little condo we bought for under 100K is now double in 2023. So what were we waiting for? If we just sat and waited, we would be paying. There's a premium that we'd be paying for waiting. I don't encourage people to wait. And that's why real estate is good for me, because I said I don't wait. I think I go out and do things that I want to do. And I think real estate is the same, or purchasing real estate is the same, as long as you have a good expectation around what you're getting. So if you say, well, I want a 5-bedroom, 5-bath home right now because I don't want to wait until the prices go up. Can you afford it? Can you afford to buy it? Can you afford the loan? Can you afford the monthly mortgage payment? Can you afford to maintain it? Make an investment that's feasible so that 3-4 years from now, maybe you can keep it, and in addition to getting your next one, or you make money off of it to fund the next one.
So, okay, you also talked about the importance of buying now versus waiting. And in our case, that's definitely been very clear and evident. And currently, interest rates are at an all-time high. What the real estate market is today versus where it was like a year and a half ago, a year ago even. A lot of people are in that mind state again to like wait until rates go back down. But to your point, the prices of the market could potentially spike, or because when we first went in the market in 2017, we actually purchased something around 1,000 square feet for just under 100,000, where those just don't exist anymore in 2023. So if you're at a certain price point trying to buy into the real estate market, I think that's just important to emphasize. If you wait, you could potentially get priced out, especially a market like the Triangle with Durham and Raleigh and Chapel Hill. When you first started, say, full time, and you quit that job, you joined the team. Like I'm curious, where's some of the benefits that you immediately sort of noticed from working your job and doing real estate versus just being in it full time? Like, what did you actually like benefit from immediately when you made that switch?
I joined a team that was doing both residential and commercial real estate, really for that reason, because I wanted to learn both. The trade-off was I got exposed to all different types of real estate transactions, different types of people, and different price points immediately. And so there's this thing called social proof, where your family and your friends aren't going to be able to, they're not going to believe that you're doing something new until they start to see that you actually are doing it well with other people. So working on the team, and I will clarify for people, the firm that I started at automatically takes 30% of my commission. Sorry, 36%. So if I sell a house for $100, they're taking $36. When you're on a team, the team takes 50%. So if I sell a house for $100,
if you get a commission for 100, not sell a house for 100, right?
Sorry. Yeah. If I get a commission for 100. Yeah. So using that same example, if I get a commission for $100 for selling a house, my team automatically takes $50. And then the firm took their 36% on top of that. So there is a trade-off in joining a team. Now, not every team is like that. But that's the team that I was on. My team was like that. And I say like that was the price I paid. Like I financed my leads, my success, my exposure by giving up 50% off the bat. In exchange though, like I said, I got a lot of exposure. When I first started out, friends, they weren't trying to do anything with me. Well, for the most part, some, and they know who they are. And thank you so much. But most weren't. They're like, girl, I thought you were like living abroad. What are you doing back here? And for all we know, this is the career that you've been preparing for the last decade. Like, why are you now selling real estate? People maybe thought it was a phase, and it was fine. But the team helped me get a track record of closing. So if you follow me on Instagram, anytime I I'm not going to say I post every time I sell a house, but I will post every house I close, because that's commission that you can take to the bank. You cannot take a new listing to the bank. You cannot take a new buyer signed up with you to the bank. You can't take an under contract to the bank. Houses fall out of contract. So the team helped me close, which is very important, because then I would post those closings and I would post what I was learning from transacting real estate all day, every day. And then that further snowballed and compounded into more people trusting and believing in me to help them.
The social proof. So working with that team gave you the exposure. You got your reps and you started actually getting some transactions where you were able to close and get that experience. At what point was it, because similar to the foreign service, you did that for a little bit and was like, nah, this won't work. Join the team and you're like, nah, this ain't gonna work. Like, so at what point from a team perspective was it like, okay, I think I can do this more on my own?
Yeah, well, business, when you say you want to be an entrepreneur and a business person, tracking your numbers is incredibly important. Being able to do basic math is incredibly important. And really the impetus for leaving the team was, in year one on the team, 75% of my closed transactions came from leads and business the team provided me. In year two, 75% of my closed transactions came from Kharmika and my relationships and my work. And so I could leave. And you should. And there are also some other ceilings that I was only allowed to work with buyers when I was on the team. There were just limited things that I was allowed to do. And again, not all teams are like that, but that's how mine was. It was time to move on. And I'm still tight with those people. They recognize it too. It's their business, it's their team. They say, you can't do this or do that. Like, that's their standard, and good for them, because they were also doing great business because they made a lot of money.
Yes, sir. So you left that team, but you were still part of a real estate organization. You were still part of a firm. So I guess that's what it's called, technically, a firm.
Yeah.
So,
or a real estate brokerage, I guess, to be more precise.
For an agent being solo versus on a team, what are some of the keys to your success as a solo agent at a firm that were more critical than, say, when you were on a team at a firm?
Your time is our most valuable resource. So we have this discussion a lot about trading labor for money. And when you're a solo agent, you are, it's all you. You are the marketing team. You are the listing agent, the buyer agent, the showing agent, the admin agent. You're doing everything yourself unless you leverage it out to hire people. Oh, I have an assistant. The Millionaire Real Estate Agent teaches you this as well, the importance of leverage when you're scaling and building, because you're going to burn out if you just keep doing things yourself, or you're going to plateau. You're either going to plateau or you're going to burn out, and likely you'll plateau because you burned out. When you're a solo agent, or anytime you're doing anything in a business, you need to move from being self-employed to entrepreneurial to purposeful. So if you're saying, well, I have my own business because I'm a freelance writer and I don't have a boss, I just do my own thing, you are a solopreneur. Like, you are self-employed. You're employed by yourself. Then when you start scaling, and maybe you're hiring out functions that hold you back, that you're not as keen to do because someone else can do them for your time, then you're entrepreneurial. Then when you learn how you can make money without actually giving the labor required, so showing 50 houses to get that one commission check, and you can actually be somewhere on a beach, now you are purposefully living a life by design, where you've put in super hard work as a self-employed entrepreneur, that you're able to leverage the fruits of that labor into you're working less but making more, and hopefully employing some people in the meantime, adding hungry new people to your team. But most importantly, people should aspire. Well, I don't tell anybody what to do. But I will say that if you're working, sometimes I work from like the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep. If you're doing that for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, I can understand maybe doing it year 1 through 5. I would not think that you're having a good life. So I do strive every day to move through those stages, self-employed, entrepreneurial, purposeful, and perhaps like early retired or something.
You got those stages. I hear where you're coming from. For you though, you're at a stage currently where you even left the firm that you originally joined. You've gone through sort of your real estate apprenticeship. I think you at this point officially have like your 10,000 hours, if you will, given the amount of time you've put in from 2017 to now. And you recently opened up your own firm. Just talk to me a little bit about what that actually means.
So this is an interesting thing. When you're with an established brokerage or firm, be it boutique or one of the big ones, it's implied that you're getting some benefit of that. The commission that they take from you, it should be in exchange for they're providing training, they're providing, workshops and masterminding, and there's power in a group. So when you leave that, I do think that it needs to be for a good reason, or that you have those things in place. And I will say that the firm that I was at has a model where I have to give 36% of my commission until I have given the cap of $23,000. And that starts over every year. So I said to myself, if I had an extra $23,000 every year, because I'm going to, it's called capping. You reach your cap. When you reach your cap, you get to keep 100% of your commission. Now, I would say on average, it takes me maybe 7 to 10 houses sold to reach my cap. So I'm going to cap every year. Okay. It doesn't matter what I'm doing unless I just don't want to. So I'm like, well, one, where can I take that money and do something else with it? But then two, the value of ownership, owning your mailing list, owning your client base, owning your ideas, owning your own website, owning your own domain, potentially owning the real estate where you actually have your real estate firm. To me, like those are just super powerful things that I aspire to. Like I always knew at some point I would start my own firm. Now, that being said, I also had an opportunity to learn commercial real estate at a high level by joining a commercial real estate firm. So it became even more beneficial for me to preserve that extra 23K if I am not at this model where I hit this consistently 7 to 10 houses sold or property sold because I'm over here learning something else. I can keep all of my commissions in the model that I created while I'm learning something else that will eventually replace that pipeline altogether, that I can also then give those opportunities to someone else that maybe comes to work for me or with me, I should say, because it'll be their own businesses. It'll just be under my brokerage. So it just made financial sense to do that. And I had spent all that time since November 2017. I think I started the Live Love Durham Instagram maybe at the top of the year in 2018. So 2018, 2019, 2020, that's 5 years of branding and marketing. It has to be towards some greater purpose of ownership, ultimate ownership. And I think it is. I think that that's what it's culminated in, is that I started the blog, I have the newsletter, I'm giving out the information, I'm closing the transactions. That's the next step.
What is the name of this new firm?
It's the Alston Real Estate Group.
Alston Real Estate Group. What a beautiful ring to that.
Yeah. And the Live Love Durham still persists. You go to livelovedurham.com. There's a body of work there that has aged very well about how to buy a house, how to sell a house, things to consider, how to find a good real estate agent, how to buy new construction, what's involved in new construction, some book reviews. There's a lot of stuff on there. So it's just complemented each other. And you can always do a rebrand. You can always change things if you want. But yeah, it's panned out.
Very nice. Under this new, I guess, firm and brand, like what are some of the things that you're looking forward to in the coming months as it relates to this venture with your real estate journey?
Well, I would say you heard me say I joined a team that did residential and commercial. So that expanding more and more into commercial real estate and getting more and more exposure is something that I really look forward to. I believe commercial real estate is even more impactful and relevant than residential real estate because these are typically businesses or institutions coming into the community. Land is transacted at a higher amount and a higher volume. This is like what changes the landscape of where we live. So we need to know about it. Well, I need to know about it. I want to know about it. I want to know who owns these things, who needs me to represent them, what can I buy in commercial real estate, how to make commercial real estate transactions more accessible to people that want to do it. So that's what I've been working on for a while. I would say officially I joined the commercial division of my old firm in August 2020. I've been taking a certification for the last few years, getting certain courses that will end when I reach a certain level of production. Less than 5% of commercial real estate agents have that. So just getting to learn more at this commercial firm as well and getting more exposure. And then also continuing to add value to the people that have supported Live, Love Durham and the Alston Real Estate Group. So that's essentially like a referral curated VIP network of clients that I will be working with and supporting and while also just providing free, helpful content, continuing to do that. That is the core of what I was doing when I started. And if people find that helpful, I would also love to keep providing that.
It sounds great. I'm so happy that you reached this point professionally, opening up your own firm. Like given that you've like I said, you've got your 10,000 hours. You've really done everything in real estate from residential to commercial, from being on a team, not being on a team, part-time, full-time. You've done so much. Like, what are some of the early lessons that you've already taken from your career in real estate that are going to stick with you here moving forward?
Well, there are certain lessons I have to keep learning over and over. But if you learn them early, they serve you well, which is setting good boundaries and asking good questions, not making assumptions about things. Every real estate transaction is different. There are aspects that can be systematized and scaled. There will always be certain paperwork involved. There will always be certain milestones to reach before closing. But outside of that, there's a lot of unpredictability. There's a lot of chances for failure and mistakes. How you prevent that, I would say, is not being afraid to ask the question. And you will know what the questions are because there'll be questions that you have in your mind that maybe you feel might be too rude or too direct to ask, but they're very important. And then setting boundaries because there will always be something that you can do and go after, but at what expense? And again, the goal is not to work as soon as you wake up and stop working as soon as you fall asleep. So there's a boundary in that as well, that you just have to find what personally works for you. For me, it was very easy to do that. It still is very easy to do that, but that doesn't mean that it's healthy or sustainable either. So
I honestly, I wanted to bring you on for people just to learn a little bit more about how you ultimately fell into real estate and why you do what you do. I think we've accomplished that. I guess to begin to close us out, do you have just any takeaways or just something you would like to leave listeners or viewers with for them to take home and think about?
Well, I think that there's always something you can learn about yourself. So if you're in a position or a situation right now that you don't like, you can use that time. You can use time to learn more about how to make that better. And then you can actually employ those lessons. And then in the next 3 to 5 years, your life could be totally different. So I would tell people, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you don't like what you're doing, you don't like your circumstances, research how to change them and then actually change them. It will be hard. It likely will be difficult. You likely may lose friends along the way, or people that you thought were friends or maybe aren't actually friends. People are going to say things. Maybe people will doubt you, but if you're not happy doing it or even content, or if you're not finding meaning, whatever it is, you can change it. And it's like you a decade to change it. And even if it does, that's your journey. Just know that it can happen. And there are lots of resources on the internet. There are lots of, like, as long as you remain eternally curious about yourself and your surroundings, you're going to always be able to do something that is better for you. And that's time well spent learning about what you like and what you don't like, and what you're good at and what you're not good at, what what you're passionate about and what you absolutely couldn't care less about. Like, don't just do things because people tell you to do things or tell you you're good at something. Really think critically about what you like and don't like, because we do say life is short, but as long as you're waking up every day and keep living, that life is long. Take advantage of that time and do it, spend it doing something that really adds meaning. I said what makes you happy, but what I really meant was what adds meaning, because I think meaning is more important than happiness.
What's the difference? What do you mean by meaning?
Like meaning, impact, significance versus
impact on like what? And are you saying
impact on anything? Let's say that you have a dog that you really love. It's just you and the dog. Okay. Imagine if the dog, and you live in like a small apartment, the dog doesn't get to do a lot, run around or whatever. Then you decide to buy a house. Okay, you've had impact on your dog. So it doesn't matter who, you've had a great impact on yourself and your dog. It doesn't matter who you're impacting. What by impact, meaning, and significance is that you were able to transform something for something or someone that you care about by impact, versus when we're waking up, we're like, I'm not happy. Just not happy about this. I'm not happy about that. I don't think, like, if you're going through this world and you're happy, I don't like, are we really happy, or are we like seeking to be content and provide meaning to ourselves and our loved ones and our family and friends? Because what's happy? Like, we're in climate change. Some of these coastlines are going to be falling out. Women are being attacked left and right. Women's right to choose, women's bodies. There's school shooting. Like, if you just expect that I wake up and I'm just going to be happy, I think that is, one, I think that's harder to achieve, but two, I think that's a less than stellar goal. Whereas, was I able to help my mom do this or that? Was I able to take her out for Mother's Day? Was I able to move out of a super dangerous neighborhood into a better one? Was I able to, I don't know, get a car that works better and is newer, is safer, has better safety features? So those are things that are impactful and meaningful that I think are more important than like, well, I'm not happy. This isn't making me happy. Like, happiness is a part of it. Like, we don't want people to be depressed and such, but I do think that striving towards meaning and impact and significance can help with the happiness quotient.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. We're gonna wrap up here. If you are listening and you're thinking about taking that step, investing in real estate, how can people get in contact with you?
Kharmika here on the YouTube thing. I'm Live Love Durham on Instagram and Facebook. I have an email address, hello@livelovedurham.com. But truthfully, if you type in Kharmika in Google, there's only one Kharmika, so you will find me. Globally, there's only one Kharmika.
Wow.
How about that? There is only one Kharmika. I don't want to cut you off. I respect women. I'm a feminist. All I do is just love Black women all day. So I'm giving you your time to speak. Is there anything else you need to say, dear?
No, I think I covered it. And I appreciate you giving me space on this super curated and elevated platform that you've developed over time. I can't wait to see where this is in 3 to 5 years. Well, that's going to be super exciting.
Yeah, we'll see. I stay elevated. This is the G podcast where we focus on family, friends, finances, freedom, and our future, and everything else. Kharmika, my dear, thank you so much for joining. Till next time.